Welcome back to Cheddar's Opening Bell. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the pandemic this year is making an already isolating and difficult battle even more so. Joining me now to discuss is Katie Couric, founder of Katie Couric Media and a MERCK collaborator, along with Paula Schneider, breast cancer survivor and CEO of SUSANG Komen and the foundation. Both of you, it's wonderful to have both of you, and I know that you face cancer head on in your own ways. Paula as a breast cancer survivor, and Katie with the death of your first husband who battled cancer. Paula, I want to start with you. There's been a sharp decline that we've seen lately in screenings and cancer diagnoses because people haven't gone out for their regular screenings amid the pandemic. What advice would you give to them on the importance of still getting one of these even during this challenging time?
Go. Because, the bottom line is some reports show it's between 50 and 80% of a decline in diagnoses of breast cancer. That doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means that it's not being diagnosed and therefore it's not being treated. And cancer grows, right? So you want to make sure that you go and get your mammogram so that you aren't in a position where 6 months from now you're thinking it might be a good time and you might have had a finding that would have cost you, precious time and maybe even your life. So you have to go and ladies, get your mammograms.
Such good advice. And Katie, I want to bring you in here as well. You were a caregiver and started Stand Up to Cancer, your own foundation. What advice would you give to caregivers during this process? How can they help?
Well, I think, first of all, it's so good to see you, Kristen. And, I think that it's really important to be there for a cancer patient. I think that whether you're living with a cancer patient or you just have a friend or relative, staying connected to that person during this very isolating time is so important. When Jay was sick, he said having cancer is the loneliest experience in the world. And I was so excited to collaborate with MERCK, Kristen, because I think yourcancerstory.com is such an incredible resource for people at the beginning of their cancer journey and really every step of the way, with emotional support and advice and nutritional support and advice, medical support, and the latest on medical information. So I was really excited to be a part of this. I wish it had been around when Jay got sick, and of course I lost my sister Emily a few years later from pancreatic cancer. And to hear people share their stories in this video series with Love Me is so profound and so comforting, I think, and makes you feel less alone. And then I did a series of videos called Cancer During COVID, where I talked to a young woman in her 30s who was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer at the beginning of the pandemic. And you can only imagine how stressful and traumatizing that is. So I think people sharing their stories can really help other people who are going through similar experiences.
That's wonderful advice there. And I just want to bring in Paula as well. I know, one of the concerns here is that pre-existing conditions with the new health care, if it is actually in this trial that we're going to see in the Supreme Court, that's going to face the Supreme Court just a week after the election, that those hundreds of millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions could be at risk of losing protections. What message do you have for lawmakers on Capitol Hill when it comes to the protection of pre-existing conditions?
Well, of course, it's of the utmost importance because there are so many people that have pre-existing conditions. I mean, you've got hundreds of millions. You just said that. People need to care that their health care is one of the most important rights that they should have.
Katie, I'd love to get your take as well as someone who is following the news on a day-to-day basis. I mean, healthcare, right? One of the biggest factors that people make their voting decision on. Is there anything in particular, a message that you have for voters, for Americans, as we get 2 weeks away from the election?
Well, if being protected when you have a pre-existing condition, which is, as you both said, really so many Americans, is important to you, you need to support someone who's going to protect you and make sure that you're eligible for insurance, which was such a key component of the Affordable Care Act, and something that I think really saved so many people, not only with their health, but also with the anxiety that comes with not being covered by insurance. So I think it's critically important. And I just, I just hope the Supreme Court does the right thing, and that continues to protect people who need protecting. And I agree with Paula. It's just an essential right. People should be able to get the health care they need. And, nobody in this society is disposable. And I think if you have a system that isn't open to people, it's just, it's just blatantly, I just think, terribly un-American, honestly.
That's right, and affecting so many Americans. Paula, I know you recently wrote a letter to your newly diagnosed self. What message do you have for people who are going through this journey, who have just been diagnosed, and what did you learn along the way?
Oh my God, it's been a lifelong journey. I wouldn't be sitting here in this chair if I hadn't been a breast cancer survivor, right? If I hadn't gotten breast cancer, I certainly wouldn't be here at Susan G. Komen, because I had a different career in a different field. And for me, it was don't sweat the small stuff. It's keep one foot in front of the other. You can only do what you can do, control what you can, but you can control your thoughts and you can control what you do. And you have to stay positive through this journey. It doesn't always end well, but every day is a gift, and you have to celebrate the joy that you can every single day.
And Katie, what other resources would you lead people to if they are part of a family who has recently faced a cancer diagnosis, or if someone has been diagnosed themselves?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, Kristen, I think connecting to people who are going through a similar experience can be so helpful and so therapeutic. And that's why I think yourcancerstory.com, you can see people talking about what they're going through. You can get advice, you can get guidance, you can get support, and other survivors and other caregivers can talk about some of the things they wish they had known that Paula just did. And so I think having that resource is so critically important. And as I said, I wish it had existed when Jay was sick and when Emily was sick. So I would have felt less alone. And so I think that anything you can do to connect to other people. Cancer used to be a shameful word. It used to be embarrassing for people to talk about. But I think we've seen so much openness in the last couple of decades. And I think it's so critically important for people to share their experiences and to not be afraid to ask for help.
Such good advice. It's wonderful to have both of you with me today. Katie Couric, founder of Katie Couric Media and a MERCK collaborator, along with Paula Schneider, breast cancer survivor and CEO of Susan G. Komen, the foundation. Thanks again, ladies.